Welcome to the Reddit Cringe Tales.
We're here to basically cut through the noise and get straight to the core insights from tricky situations. You want to get up to speed quickly, understand things deeply, and, well, that's what we do. Today, we've got a really compelling personal story.
Yeah, we're digging into an account from a 37-year-old woman detailing the end of a pretty challenging relationship.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, a simple breakup. There were layers here, financial stuff, boundary issues, particularly around her boyfriend's daughter.
Exactly. So we're taking her experience, her story, and pulling out the key lessons, things about money and relationships, why boundaries are so critical, and how to spot maybe some manipulative behavior. And honestly, these takeaways, they apply way beyond just romantic partnerships.
Oh, absolutely. Understanding these kinds of dynamics, expectations, resources, whether they're financial or emotional, that's relevant everywhere. Family, work, you name it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. How did this all start? Our narrator, she was actually doing really well. Just landed 3 big contracts, hitting financial goals, had cut back her university hours. Pretty solid footing.
Right. And her kids were with her parents temporarily, so she made a very practical move. A small, affordable studio apartment. Not fancy, but it saved time, saved money. Smart.
Seems totally sensible, right? But here's the thing, prioritizing your own, logical financial steps, sometimes that immediately highlights where you and a partner might clash.
It really does. It showed her focus, her independence, and that's key context, because what happened next really stands out against that backdrop of responsibility.
Yeah, her boyfriend, Ben, he wasn't thrilled, not at all. He starts pushing her almost immediately to move to a much pricier place closer to his daughter's school.
And here's the kicker. He wanted her to co-sign the lease, put her name on the line, financially.
But he wasn't offering to chip in for the rent himself.
Nope. And apparently he got upset that she wasn't putting his daughter's convenience, essentially, above her own financial planning.
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty big early sign, wouldn't you say? Like, whose needs come first here?
It definitely flags a potential imbalance right away.
Yeah.
Where one person's comfort just seems more important. Her practical choice was met with negativity. That's a red flag for sure. Lack of respect for her choices.
Definitely. And it didn't stop there. It escalated. She mentioned he then suggested a business partnership.
Yeah, which he turned down. Good reasons, too. She had her own business ideas brewing, plus she knew nothing about his field.
Seems perfectly reasonable. But his reaction, kind of telling.
What happened?
Well, suddenly he starts making comments about her things, joking she was loaded. Even called his daughter an awesome protege.
Ah, okay, so the focus shifts to her money and how maybe his daughter could, get involved with it.
Exactly. It feels like a subtle shift, but it's there, this language that positions her success as something potentially available to them.
Those kinds of offhand comments, jokes, they can be little tests, can't they? Seeing what you'll let slide, testing boundaries early on.
Totally. And then came something even more direct, maybe more uncomfortable. He told her she should treat his daughter like a daughter of my own.
Ooh, why?
His reasoning was because she only has sons. This was her chance to have a girl in the family.
Wow, okay.
Now, she's clear she liked the daughter. She was always kind to her. But that request feels weighted,
It absolutely does. It implies this huge level of emotional and probably financial investment, the same she gives her own kids. But without him offering anything similar back towards her kids, it's uneven.
Really uneven. And that sets up potential problems down the road.
Precisely. It's an asymmetrical expectation. He's asking for all the involvement of being a parent, but without that shared history, that mutual responsibility. And it kind of subtly implies her family isn't, complete somehow.
Right. And what makes his later comments even weirder is that she actually was really good to his daughter. Like, she hired her for a weekend cleaning gig, paid her well, even bought her some makeup, just, nice gestures.
Okay, so she was genuinely making an effort.
Yeah. But Ben's reaction to this, he starts joking about his daughter starting at the bottom in her business, like it's the family business.
Oh, come on.
And then later, even jokes about the daughter being in her will.
Seriously. Jokes about the will. That's not subtle anymore.
Not at all. It's this pattern becoming more and more obvious, implying his daughter has some future claim on her resources.
That pattern is so important. Those jokes, they normalize the idea, don't they? Plant the seed, make it seem less shocking when maybe a real ask comes later. It's a gradual erosion of boundaries.
From casual comments to inheritance jokes. Yeah, that's quite the escalation.
Very concerning one.
So inevitably, this all leads to a confrontation, a breaking point. She finally puts her foot down, says, look, I've worked like crazy for over 10 years to build something for my kids, for their future. I'm not diverting that to someone else's child, especially when you don't even respect my basic financial choices.
A very clear, very reasonable boundary.
Yeah.
How did he take it?
Badly. Predictably badly. He stormed out, then sent texts, accusatory texts.
Like what?
Calling her disconnected, bullying, saying she treated his daughter like she was inferior.
The blame shift. The victim card. Classic manipulation tactic to make her feel guilty for setting a boundary. Deflecting accountability.
Totally. And she even tried to talk it through later, apologized if maybe she sounded too harsh.
And did that help?
Nope. He went right back to the money, pitched another business idea for his daughter that would need her sweat equity.
So he just completely ignored what she just said, ignored her core concern.
Completely. It just showed zero respect for her perspective, her priorities. It was all about what she could do for them financially.
Wow. That's blatant.
Yeah.
A fundamental lack of respect for her as a person, not just her resources.
And then it got even uglier. The manipulation really ramped up. He accused her of being blinded by success, warned her she'd end up single and lonely.
Ouch. Playing on fear and guilt there.
Big time. She asked if he was threatening to leave, and he twisted it, saying she wasn't acting like a real partner.
Turning it back on her again.
Exactly. And when she needed space, asked for a break to think, he just flipped out, using fear, guilt, anger, trying to control the situation.
It really is classic manipulation. The blinded by success line is especially nasty, trying to make her achievement seem like a flaw. And the loneliness threat. That's hitting below the belt, exploiting a common fear to make her back down.
Yeah, it's really trying to undermine her confidence in her own judgment.
Keep her in the relationship, but on his terms.
So the final showdown happens in public, a cafe, I think. She tries again, lays out her priorities. My kids come first. I won't be manipulated. But he just talks over her, deflects, won't engage properly.
Doing it in public is interesting too, maybe trying to avoid a real, raw, accountable conversation. Easier to deflect when others might be around.
Could be. He just wouldn't listen. But then she had a nerve. She pointed out the one-sidedness of it all. How much he expected for his daughter compared to what he offered or didn't offer for her kids.
Okay, how did he respond to that direct comparison?
His response was, well, it was something else. He said, well, your kids don't have a dad. I can be that.
Oh, my goodness.
Right.
That is incredibly manipulative. Using the absence of her kid's father, a point of potential vulnerability, as leverage to justify his financial expectations.
It felt almost predatory reading it, like trying to create this sense of obligation. I can fill this gap if you give me what I want.
It completely misses the point she was making about fairness and boundaries.
Yeah.
The calculated emotional ploy.
Yeah. And that seemed to be it for her. The absolute final straw. She broke it off right then and there, called him gold digger, said the trust was gone, completely broken.
Good for her. A clear declaration. His reaction.
He just got up and left. Walked out.
Serious.
Well, for a moment. Then he apparently came back saying he needed the restroom.
That's almost comical. It just highlights how little he respected her decision, how little seriousness he gave the whole situation.
Exactly. It's such a dismissive response after she laid her heart out and made a firm decision. Shows the huge gap in their values. Definitely. And it wasn't quite over even then. She, very smartly, changed her locks. Just in case.
Wise move. Sensible precaution.
And then guess what? He tried to spin the story to a mutual friend, paint himself as the victim, her as the bad guy.
Of course he did. How did that go down?
It backfired. Big time. The friend was like, yeah, no. And apparently, this friend and others had already noticed his behavior, his constant focus on money, the manipulation.
External validation, that's huge. It confirms she wasn't just imagining it or being overly sensitive. Others saw the pattern too.
Yeah, it really cemented that her instincts were right all along. His focus was clear to others too.
That lack of genuine contribution, just focusing on the financial gain, yeah, it speaks volumes.
So her final step was just blocking him everywhere, cutting all contact, a necessary act of self-preservation, really.
Absolutely. Drawing that final line.
Okay, so let's pull back a bit. We've gone through the story, the painful details. What are the big takeaways here for everyone listening? What can we learn from this?
I think the biggest one, honestly, is how crucial both financial stability and emotional security are in a partner. They're so linked. You see here how his financial issues, or maybe just his entitlement, led him to try and tap into her resources. And his emotional tactics, the manipulation, were the tools he used to try and get there.
That makes sense. They really feed into each other.
Yeah, and healthy relationships need balance, that give and take. When it's consistently one-sided, with one person always expecting things, that's just a setup for resentment, or worse, exploitation.
Definitely. And it really flags those red flags we should all be watching for. Not just in romance, but any relationship, really. Those little comments about your money, the small boundary tests, those unequal expectations. Paying attention to those early on can save you so much trouble later. It's about efficiency, right? Avoiding that bigger cost down the line.
Exactly. And it's often subtle at first. Not always big demands for cash. It can be those jokes, the suggestions that constantly steer things toward your money, benefiting them, without any real talk of mutual goals or shared commitment.
You really have to listen to the undercurrent sometime.
You do. Be aware of that pattern.
And the imbalance here was just stark. Expecting her to essentially take on a parental role financially and emotionally for his daughter.
While offering nothing comparable back for her kids.
Right. It's such a clear reminder that good relationships are built on reciprocity, on mutual respect and consideration. It doesn't have to be perfectly 50-50 all the time, but the overall feeling needs to be fair.
Agreed. That sense of fairness, of mutual care, has to be there. Otherwise, the foundation is just too weak. It becomes damaging.
And the last point, maybe the toughest one, is the courage it takes. The courage to end things, even when you've invested time and emotion, when you see those fundamental boundaries being crossed again and again, when your well-being is on the line.
It's incredibly hard. But prioritizing your own financial health, your emotional safety, that's paramount. Recognizing when it's just not working, especially when there's manipulation or entitlement involved, and having the strength to say no more, that's a huge act of self-respect.
A critical act of self-respect and, like she did, self-preservation. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe something for our listeners to think about. Consider the relationships in your own life, romantic, family, friends, whatever. Are there subtle ways that expectations, maybe around money or effort or time, are playing out?
Yeah, are there any little tests, any boundary pushes, maybe seemingly small ones, that you might be dismissing or overlooking?
What can you learn from this woman's really difficult experience about protecting what's important to you? Your priorities, your values, your resources?
It's definitely worth reflecting on. How would you handle a similar situation? What are your non-negotiables?
Food for thought. Thanks for digging into this with me today.
Always interesting. Thanks for having me.